The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber sealed shut with a soft hiss. Inside, 300 representatives from across the galaxy sat in stunned silence. The empty human seats seemed to glow under the bright lights, mocking them all. Ambassador, Sarah Chen had walked out 3 hours ago. She had not shouted or argued. She had not thrown her datapad or cursed at the council members who had voted down humanity's motion for the 5th time in 2 years. She had simply stood up, gathered her things, and left. Did she say anything? Asked Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Republic. His blue skin had turned pale, which happened when he was worried. Nothing, replied the session recorder. She just nodded once and walked away. That was 3 months ago. Now the galaxy was starting to panic. Captain Jexra of the Zephyrian exploration vessel Starwing stared at his scanner readings. They made no sense. The human colony of New Terra should have been right in front of him. The planet was there. The cities were there. The lights were on, but there were no humans. Run the scan again, he told his crew. Same result, Captain, came the reply. We detect human technology, human power sources, human agriculture systems, all working perfectly, but no human life signs anywhere on the planet. Jexra had been friends with humans for 20 years. He had visited New Terra many times. Last time it had been home to 2 million people. Busy streets, crowded markets, children playing in parks. Now it was empty. This was the 7th human world they had checked. All the same, everything working, nobody home. The communication system crackled to life. Starwing, this is Admiral Thex of the Krathan Empire. What is your status? Jexra sighed. The Krathan were always looking for a fight. The same as the others, Admiral. Empty but intact. Impossible, came the harsh reply. Planets don't just lose their entire population overnight. Well, this one did, just like the 6 before it. On his flagship Iron Fist, Admiral Thex studied the reports coming in from across human space. His red-scaled skin grew darker when he was angry, and right now he looked almost black. They can't have just vanished, he growled to his officers. 2 billion humans don't just disappear. Perhaps they died of some disease, suggested one officer. Then where are the bodies? Where are the signs of panic? Their cities look like everyone just went home for dinner and never came back. Thex had never liked humans. They were too soft, too concerned with peace. But they were also clever and resourceful. If they had all left their worlds, they had a reason, and that worried him. Back on the Galactic Council station, emergency sessions were being held every day. Representatives who had barely paid attention to human warnings were now desperate for answers. We need to send investigation teams, declared Chancellor Moradin of the Central Worlds Alliance. His tentacles writhed nervously as he spoke. Investigation teams to where? Asked Veltar. Every human world is the same, empty but undamaged. It's like they all decided to leave at the same time. People don't just coordinate a galactic evacuation without anyone noticing, said Representative Kayla from the hegemony. Her insect-like features clicked with annoyance. Veltar pulled up, the voting records on his screen. Maybe we should look at what the humans were trying to tell us before they left. The chamber grew quiet. Everyone remembered the last few years of human requests. More funding for deep space monitoring. More ships patrolling the outer rim. More research into ancient ruins and dead civilizations. The council had voted down every single request. They were being paranoid, muttered Chancellor Morden, always talking about threats that never materialized. What if they weren't paranoid? Asked Veltar quietly. What if they knew something we didn't? Meanwhile, in the depths of space, a small human research station continued its work. Dr. Elena Martinez checked her instruments for the 100th time that day. The readings were getting stronger. How long until it arrives? She asked her AI assistant. At current speed, approximately 11 months, the AI replied in its calm voice. Elena nodded and made another note in her log. Around her, the station hummed with activity as her small crew worked frantically. They were the last humans in known space left behind to watch and warn. But warn who? The council had made it clear they weren't interested in human concerns. Any word from the fleet? Elena asked. Admiral Chen reports all civilian evacuations complete. Military preparations are on schedule. Elena looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, hidden in the vast emptiness between galaxies, 2 billion humans were preparing for what was coming. They had tried to warn everyone else. They had begged for help, for cooperation, for unity in the face of the approaching threat. The galaxy had voted them down, so humanity had chosen to face the darkness alone. Back on the council station, Veltar was digging through old human reports. What he found made his blood run cold. References to ancient derelict ships, warnings carved in dead languages, stories of civilizations that had faced something from the void between galaxies. They knew, he whispered to himself. Somehow they knew. He thought about his friend Sarah Chen, who had sat in these chambers for 5 years. Always polite, always professional, but with worry growing in her eyes each year. She had tried to warn them all, and they had ignored her. Admiral Thex was having similar thoughts on his flagship. His military advisors had found human defensive preparations on several worlds, not against each other or other galactic species, against something else, something from outside. What were they so afraid of? He wondered aloud. His science officer, a young Krathan named Vex, looked up from his reports. Sir, I've been analyzing the human evacuation patterns. They didn't leave, randomly. They followed very specific routes, all leading toward the galactic rim. The rim? There's nothing out there but empty space. Exactly, sir. If I wanted to hide a large population, that's where I would go. Thex stared at the star charts. 2 billion humans gone without a trace, but not dead, hidden, waiting. What are they waiting for? He asked. The answer came 3 days later. Dr. Martinez's instruments screamed warnings as something massive appeared on her long-range sensors. It was still months away, but she could already tell it was bigger than anything she had ever seen, and it was heading straight for the galaxy. She activated the emergency beacon, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Research Station Prometheus to all Galactic Council forces. We have confirmed contact with unknown vessels approaching from Galactic, Northwest. Estimated arrival in 10 months. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The message reached the council station 6 hours later. In the emergency session that followed, representatives stared at the data in growing horror. The approaching fleet was enormous. Hundreds of massive ships, each one the size of a moon. Where are the humans? Demanded Chancellor Morden. Veltar looked at the empty human seat and felt a chill run down his spine. I think, he said slowly, they're getting ready to save us all. The joint expedition ship Harmony dropped out of hyperspace near New Geneva, the former human industrial world. Dr. Veltar pressed his face against the observation window, his blue skin reflecting the planet's pale light. Still gives me chills, he muttered. Beside him, General Thex adjusted his armor with a metallic clank. We've checked 17 human worlds. This one better have answers. New Geneva was their biggest manufacturing center, Veltar said, reading from his data pad. 2.5 million humans lived here 6 months ago. If we're going to find clues about where they went, it'll be here. The planet looked perfect from orbit. City lights twinkled in neat patterns. Orbital platforms continued their automated work, building ships that no one would ever claim. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Taking us down to the main city, announced Captain Zara, the hegemony pilot. Her 4 arms moved smoothly across the controls. Landing zone is clear, as expected, the capital city of New Geneva, stretched for hundreds of kilometers across a green valley. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, connected by bridges and transport tubes. Gardens bloomed between the structures tended by automated systems, but no people walked the streets. The expedition team landed in the central plaza. Veltar, Thex, Captain Zara, and 20 specialists from various species stepped out into the quiet city. The only sounds were wind through the buildings and the distant hum of machinery. Scanners show all systems operational, reported Chief Engineer Cole, a stocky Dwarnian. Power grid stable, water treatment plants running, even the garbage collection. Robots are still working. It's like they all went home for the night and never came back, whispered Dr. Senna, the expedition's psychologist. Thex led his soldiers toward the government district while Veltar's science team headed for the industrial zones. They had learned to split up on these investigations. Every human world told the same strange story, but each had small differences. General, you need to see this, came Thex's voice over the comm an hour later. Veltar's team hurried to meet them at the planet's administrative center. Inside the main government building, Thex stood in front of a massive wall display showing shipping records. Look at the dates, Thex said, pointing at the screen. Veltar studied the information. These show massive cargo movements starting 2 years ago. Raw materials, electronics, food supplies, all shipped to coordinates in the outer rim. That's not the strange part, Thex continued. He switched the display to show construction permits. Look at what they were building underground. The permits showed huge excavation projects beneath every major city on New Geneva. Tunnels, chambers, and facilities that went deep into the planet's crust. But the blueprints were incomplete, marked with security classifications the expedition team had never seen before. "We need to get underground," Veltar said. It took them 6 hours to find an entrance. Hidden beneath a park in the city center, a massive shaft descended into the planet's depths. The expedition team took their equipment and started the long journey down. The elevator worked perfectly, dropping them nearly 2 kilometers underground. When the doors opened, they stepped into something that took their breath away. "By the void," whispered Captain Zara. The underground facility was enormous. Tunnels stretched in every direction, lit by emergency lighting. But it wasn't the size that shocked them. It was how new everything looked. The walls were smooth. The technology was advanced, and it was clearly human in design. But it was unlike any human technology they had seen before. "These power conduits," said Engineer Cole, running his scanner over the walls. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they were powering down here needed massive amounts of electricity." "And look at these reinforcements," added Thex, examining the ceiling. "This place was built to survive anything. Asteroid impacts, nuclear weapons, maybe even planetary destruction." They followed the main tunnel for an hour, passing dozens of sealed chambers and empty rooms. Everything was clean and abandoned, as if the humans had packed up and left yesterday. "Motion sensor contact ahead," announced one of Thex's soldiers. The team moved carefully forward, weapons ready. But they found only a maintenance robot, still, working to keep the facility clean. It ignored them completely, focused on its eternal task. "How long has this been running?" Veltar asked. "According to the construction permits, they started building this 2 years ago," Zara replied. "But some of these technologies look much more advanced than anything humans had back then." They reached the center of the facility and found a vast chamber. It was empty now, but the floor showed marks where massive equipment had once stood. Power cables as thick as trees lay coiled in corners. "This was some kind of factory," Cole said, studying the setup. "But what were they making?" Thex found the answer at a control station near the chamber's center. The computers were still active, displaying production schedules and shipping manifests. But the language used in the files was strange, mixing human words with terms none of them recognized. "Project Exodus," Thex read aloud. "Phase 1, Industrial Relocation. Phase 2, Population Transfer. Phase 3, Final Preparations." "Final preparations for what?" asked Veltar. His answer came when they found the sealed chamber at the facility's deepest level. It took their combined efforts to open the massive blast doors. Inside, they found a small room with walls covered in writing. The message was carved into metal plates in 17 different galactic languages, including several that were considered dead. The words were simple, but chilling. "To those who find this message, and we tried to warn you. The Harbingers return from the void as they have before. We found the records of the last galactic civilization in the ruins of Kepler 442. They faced the same enemy. 7 years ago they failed. We will not fail. We are sorry it came to this. We are sorry we could not make you listen. Prepare yourselves. They come from the darkness between stars. Humanity, year 2387. The expedition team stood in shocked silence, reading the message over and over. "Kepler 442, whispered Veltar. "That's the dead system in the outer rim, the one with all the ancient ruins. Humans weren't allowed to explore there," Thex said slowly. "The Council declared it off limits. For safety reasons, they went anyway," Zara realized. They found something in those ruins, something that warned them about what was coming. Veltar's hands shook as he recorded the message. All those times they asked for funding to study ancient civilizations. All those requests for deep space monitoring equipment, they weren't being paranoid. They were preparing, Thex finished grimly. The team spent another day exploring the facility, but they found no more answers. Whatever the humans had built, here, they had taken it with them when they left. The underground complex was just an empty shell now, a monument to human preparation and galactic ignorance. As they prepared to leave New Geneva, Veltar sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. "We have confirmation that humanity discovered evidence of an approaching threat. They have been preparing for at least 2 years, possibly longer. We recommend immediate emergency session to discuss our response." The reply came back within hours. "Request denied. Council is busy with trade. Negotiations. We'll schedule discussion for next quarter." Beltar stared at the message in disbelief. Even now, with evidence of an approaching danger, the council refused to listen. He looked at Thex, who was checking his weapons with grim determination. "What do we do now?" Beltar asked. "We prepare," Thex said simply. "And we pray that the humans know what they're doing." As their ship left New Geneva's atmosphere, none of them noticed the small probe that detached from their hull. It was tiny, barely larger than a fist and completely undetectable by their sensors. The probe watched them leave, then activated its transmission system. Deep in space, Dr. Elena Martinez received the signal at Research Station Prometheus. "They found the message," she reported to Admiral Chen. "The Zephyrian and the Krythan both understand now." "Good," came the reply. "How much time do we have left?" Elena checked her instruments. The approaching fleet was getting closer every day. 8 months, 14 days, she said. "Give or take." "Then we better hurry," Admiral Chen replied. "Phase 3 begins now." The emergency klaxons hadn't stopped wailing for 3 days. On the Galactic Council Station, chaos ruled the halls. Representatives from hundreds of worlds crowded into emergency sessions, their voices rising in panic and accusation. The great chamber that had once symbolized galactic unity now echoed with fear. "The outer rim defense grid has gone completely silent," announced Admiral Kresh of the combined fleet. His normally steady voice cracked as he spoke. 17 systems, all dark. No distress signals, no warnings, nothing. Chancellor Mordun's tentacles writhed frantically as he processed the reports. "How many ships were stationed out there?" 300 vessels, Kresh replied. "Our best battleships and their crews, all gone." "Gone how?" demanded Representative Kayla. "Ships don't just vanish." "The same way the Harbinger fleet approaches," said Dr. Veltar quietly from his seat. "Without warning, without mercy, and without leaving survivors." The chamber fell silent. Everyone had read Veltar's report about New Geneva, but many had dismissed it as human propaganda. Now, with system after system going dark on the galaxy's edge, the truth was impossible to ignore. "Show us the sensor data," ordered Chancellor Mordun. The main display lit up with a map of the galaxy. Red zones marked the areas that had gone silent, spreading like a disease from the outer rim inward. But more terrifying were the readings from deep space sensors, the ones the humans had begged them to build years ago. The approaching fleet was massive beyond imagination. "Computer analysis suggests over 2,000 vessels," reported the sensor technician. "Each one appears to be between 50 and 200 kilometers long." "That's impossible," whispered Admiral Kresh. "Nothing that large could function as a spaceship." "Tell that to the 17 systems they've already consumed," Veltar said grimly. General Thex stood from his seat, his red scales darker than usual with anger. "Where are the humans? We need their data about this enemy." "They're gone," Mordun replied. "And they're not answering any of our communications. Because you ignored them for 5 years." Thex's voice boomed across the chamber. "They tried to warn us, they begged for our help, and we voted them down every single time." "We couldn't have known," began Representative Kala. "They knew." Thex slammed his fist on his podium. "They found evidence in the Kepler ruins. They discovered what happened to the last galactic civilization, and instead of listening to them, we told them to stop being paranoid." Veltar activated his personal display and shared the message they had found on New Geneva. The words appeared in the air above the chamber in blazing letters. "We tried to warn you." "They spent 2 years preparing while we argued about trade. Arts," Thex continued. "They evacuated their entire population while we debated mining rights. And now when the storm is at our doorstep, we finally want to listen." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some representatives blamed the humans for abandoning the galaxy. Others demanded to know why their intelligence services hadn't detected the threat earlier. A few brave ones admitted they had ignored human warnings because they thought humans were primitive and paranoid. In the middle of the chaos, a new voice cut through the noise. "Incoming transmission from the edge of human space," announced the communications officer. The chamber fell silent. On the main screen, a human woman appeared. She wore a military uniform none of them recognized, standing on the bridge of a ship that looked nothing like the vessels humans had used before. "I am Admiral Rachel Chen of the Human Exodus Fleet," she said calmly. "I believe you wanted to talk." Chancellor Mordun's tentacles quivered with relief. "Admiral Chen, thank goodness, we need your help. The enemy you warned us about is 8 days away from reaching the core worlds," Admiral Chen interrupted. "Yes, we know. We've been tracking them for the past 6 months." "Then you'll help us defend the galaxy?" asked Veltar hopefully. Admiral Chen's expression remained neutral. That depends. Depends on what? Demanded Thex. On whether you're finally ready to listen. Admiral Chen gestured, and the display changed to show detailed sensor readings of the approaching fleet. The level of detail was stunning, far beyond anything the Council's sensors could produce. These are the Void Harbingers, Admiral Chen explained. They come from the space between galaxies following patterns of expansion that repeat every 50,000 years. The last galactic civilization called them the Devourers of Light. The data showed massive ships with organic-looking hulls, surrounded by smaller vessels that moved like living creatures. Energy readings suggested technology that was millions of years ahead of anything the galaxy currently possessed. How do we fight them? Asked Admiral Kresh. You don't, Admiral Chen said bluntly. Your weapons can't penetrate their shields. Your ships are too slow to escape their hunters. Your strategies are based on fighting other galactic species, not something that has perfected interstellar warfare across multiple galaxies. Then we're all doomed, whispered Representative Kayla. Not necessarily, Admiral Chen continued. The previous galactic civilization left detailed records about the Harbinger's weaknesses. We found those records in the Kepler ruins and spent the last 4 years preparing. 4 years? Veltar leaned forward. But you only started evacuating 2 years ago. We started preparing 4 years ago. We started evacuating when it became clear the Council would never listen to our warnings. Admiral Chen paused, letting the implications sink in. While you debated and dismissed our concerns, we built new shipyards in the void between stars. We developed weapons specifically designed to fight the Harbingers. We created mobile cities to house our population while they prepare for war. You've been preparing for war while we thought you were running away, Thex realized. We're not running, General. We're positioning ourselves for the fight of our lives. The display changed again, showing human ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were sleek and powerful, built for speed and firepower. But more importantly, they incorporated technologies that seemed almost magical. These ships use Harbinger technology, Admiral Chen explained, salvaged from their ancient battlefields and reverse-engineered over decades of secret research. We didn't abandon you. We went ahead to scout the enemy and prepare defenses. Chancellor Morden found his voice. What do you need from us? Nothing you haven't already refused to give, Admiral Chen replied coldly. We asked for cooperation. You gave us politics. We asked for resources. You gave us budget cuts. We asked for unity. You gave us isolation. But surely now, began Veltar. Now, we fight alone, Admiral Chen said. As we always have. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. But Admiral Chen wasn't done. 3 hours later, every ship in the galaxy received the same broadcast. It went to military vessels, civilian transports, and even personal communicators. Admiral Chen stood in front of a star field, her voice clear and strong. People of the galaxy, this is Admiral Chen of the Human Exodus Fleet. In 7 days, an enemy will arrive that threatens all life in our galaxy. Your governments have refused to prepare for this threat, despite 4 years of warnings from humanity. We will not let the galaxy die because of their failures. Human forces are moving to intercept the Harbinger fleet. We will buy you time to evacuate your core worlds. We will stand between you and extinction, not because your leaders deserve it, but because your people do. This is what we do. This is who we are. Humanity stands guard in the darkness, so others can live in the light. The broadcast ended, but its impact shook every world in the galaxy. On millions of planets, people looked up at the stars and wondered if the humans they had dismissed as primitive warmongers were really their only hope for survival. Deep in space, Admiral Chen turned to her bridge crew. Status report, she ordered. All fleets are in position, replied her tactical officer. 2,000 ships ready for combat. Enemy contact? 6 days, 17 hours until they reach the outer defense perimeter. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Humanity had tried diplomacy for 50 years. They had tried cooperation for a decade. They had tried warnings for 4 years. Now they would try war. Signal all ships, she commanded. Begin final preparations. The galaxy's survival depends on what we do in the next week. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. They were fighting an enemy that had destroyed countless civilizations. They were alone in the void, with no backup coming. But they were human, and humans had never learned how to surrender. The first human ship appeared like a ghost from the void. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his sensors with growing amazement. The vessel that emerged from hyperspace bore no resemblance to the chunky, practical human ships he remembered. This one was elegant, deadly, and moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. Size estimate? He asked his sensor officer. 15 kilometers long, sir. But the mass readings are all wrong. It's somehow lighter than our ship's half its size. How is that possible? Before anyone could answer, more human ships began appearing. Dozens at first, then hundreds, then thousands. They materialized from hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with an inner light that made them visible even in the darkness of space. By the void, whispered Kresh's tactical officer. There are so many of them. On the Galactic Council Station, emergency sessions had been running non-stop for 3 days. But now representatives crowded around the observation windows, staring in awe at the human fleet that had suddenly appeared at the galaxy's edge. How did they build so many ships without us knowing? Demanded Chancellor Morden. The same way. They evacuated 2 billion people without us noticing, replied Dr. Veltar quietly. They planned ahead while we argued about paperwork. The human fleet was unlike anything in the galactic archives. The ships moved with perfect coordination, their formations flowing like water. Energy readings showed power sources that shouldn't have been possible with known technology. Incoming transmission, announced the communications officer. Admiral Chen appeared on the main display, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood officers from a dozen different human colonies, their uniforms bearing rank insignia and ship names the Council had never seen before. Chancellor Morden, Admiral Chen began formally. I bring greetings from the Human Defense Coalition and a message from our elected representatives. Your representatives? Morden's tentacles twisted, in confusion. But Ambassador Sarah Chen left months ago. Ambassador Chen was our diplomatic representative, Admiral Chen explained. When diplomacy failed, leadership passed to those prepared to defend our species and our allies. The display shifted to show Sarah Chen, but she was no longer wearing diplomatic robes. Instead, she wore the uniform of a fleet admiral, standing in what looked like a massive command center. People of the galaxy, Sarah Chen said, her voice carrying the authority of command. For 50 years, humanity has been part of this galactic community. We have contributed our knowledge, our resources, and our loyalty to the common good. We asked for very little in return. Only that you listen when we warned of dangers. Only that you help us prepare for threats we all would face. You refused. The display changed to show recordings from council sessions over the past 4 years. Human representatives presenting evidence of ancient threats, asking for research funding, requesting military preparation. In each case, the council voted them down. When the Kepler ruins were discovered, we asked permission to study them, Sarah Chen continued. You declared the system off limits and ordered us to stay away. So we went in secret. New images appeared, showing human expeditions to the dead Kepler system, teams of scientists working in the ruins of massive cities, translating alien writing, studying technology that was millions of years old. What we found changed everything, Sarah Chen explained. Records of a galactic civilization that faced the same enemy 50,000 years ago. They called themselves the Builders, and they left detailed accounts of their war against the Void Harbingers. The Builders lost. Their entire galaxy was consumed, leaving only ruins and warnings for whoever came after. But they also left something else. Technology, weapons, ships designed specifically to fight the Harbingers. The display showed human teams working frantically to understand alien technology. Years of research compressed into minutes of footage, breakthrough after breakthrough, as they learned to combine human engineering with builder science. We brought this evidence to the Council 4 years ago, Sarah Chen said. We showed you the threat. We offered to share the technology. We begged for cooperation. You called us paranoid, so we made a choice. We would prepare alone. The images changed to show something that took every viewer's breath away. Hidden shipyards in the void between stars, each one larger than most planets. Millions of humans working together, building not just ships but entire floating cities. For 4 years we have been preparing, building, learning, training. While you debated trade routes, we developed weapons that can penetrate Harbinger shields. While you argued about mining rights, we created engines that can outrun Harbinger hunters. While you dismissed our warnings, we evacuated our entire population to mobile fleets that can survive the destruction of worlds. We are no longer the species you remember. The display focused on Admiral Rachel Chen again. In 6 hours, the Harbinger fleet will reach the outer defense perimeter. They come with 2,000 ships, each one carrying the technology to destroy entire star systems. We will meet them with 2,000 ships of our own. But ours are different. Ours are built from the knowledge of those who came before. Ours carry the hopes of those who refuse to surrender to the darkness. General Thex found his voice. Admiral, what do you need from us? What we've always needed, General, but it's too late for that now. Then what can we do? Survive, Admiral Chen said simply. Evacuate your core worlds. Prepare your people for the possibility that some systems may fall before we can stop the Harbingers, and pray that we're as good as we think we are. The transmission shifted to show the approaching enemy. The Harbinger fleet was a nightmare of organic curves and predatory design. Each ship pulsed with dark energy, surrounded by smaller vessels that moved like living creatures hunting in a pack. They've destroyed 17 systems so far, Admiral Chen reported. Our analysis suggests they're not interested in conquest. They consume everything: matter, energy, even the quantum foam that makes up empty space. If they reach the core worlds, the galaxy dies. We won't let that happen. On screens across the galaxy, people watched human ships moving into defensive positions. The formations were complex and beautiful, ships flowing around each other in patterns that seemed almost like a dance. Fleet deployment complete, reported Admiral Chen's tactical officer. All ships report ready for combat. Any word from the Council fleet? Admiral Chen asked. They're maintaining position at the core world's perimeter, came the reply. Admiral, Kresh requests permission to join the engagement. Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. Tell Admiral Kresh that his ships are not equipped for this fight. They would be destroyed in the first minutes of combat. He says he knows that, Admiral. He wants to stand with us anyway. Admiral Chen closed her eyes briefly. Tell him we are honored by his courage, but someone needs to survive to help rebuild if we fail. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Dr. Veltar stood at his observation window, watching human ships take position between the galaxy and certain destruction. Each vessel moved with purpose and determination, crewed by people who had spent years preparing for this moment. They're not just fighting for themselves, he whispered to General Thex. No, Thex agreed. They're fighting for all of us, even after we failed them. What kind of species does that? The kind, said a new voice behind them, that refuses to let evil win. They turned to see Ambassador Sarah Chen walking toward them, but she wasn't alone. A dozen human officers accompanied her, each one wearing the insignia of the Human Defense Coalition. Ambassador? Veltar asked in confusion. Admiral Sarah Chen, she corrected gently. I've returned to offer the Council one last chance at cooperation. What kind of cooperation? Asked Chancellor Mordun, who had hurried over when he saw her arrive. The kind where you listen, Admiral Chen said firmly. The kind where you trust us to know what we're doing. The kind where you let us fight this war our way. And if we refuse? Admiral Chen looked out at the stars where her people were preparing to face impossible odds. Then you'll watch us die trying to save you anyway, she said quietly. Because that's who we are. In the distance, the first flashes of light began to appear as human, and Harbinger fleets made contact. The battle for the galaxy's survival had begun. The galaxy watched in silence as two fleets met in the void between the stars. On billions of worlds, people gathered around screens and looked up at the sky. They knew that somewhere in the darkness above, the fate of every living thing hung in the balance. The Harbinger fleet moved like a living organism. 2,000 massive ships advanced in perfect formation, their dark hulls pulsing with energy that made space itself ripple around them. They had destroyed countless civilizations across multiple galaxies, and they approached this new target with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. The human fleet waited for them. Admiral Rachel Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant Dawn. Around her, officers from across human space worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment for 4 years. Everything they were, everything they had ever been, came down to the next few hours. Enemy fleet entering weapons range in 30 minutes, reported her tactical officer. Signal all ships, Admiral, Chen ordered. Execute Formation Omega. Across the human fleet, ships began to move, but instead of forming the traditional battle lines that galactic militaries used, they created something entirely different. The formation flowed and shifted like water, ships moving in 3 dimensions around imaginary currents only they could see. What are they doing? asked Admiral Kresh from his position at the core world's perimeter. His sensors could barely track the complex movements of the human fleet. Something we've never seen before, replied his sensor officer. On the Galactic Council station, representatives crowded around displays showing the approaching battle. The human formations were unlike anything in their military databases. Ships moved above, below, and around each other in patterns that seemed random, but felt purposeful. It's beautiful, whispered Dr. Veltar. It's impossible, said Chancellor Morden. No fleet can coordinate movements that complex. They were both right. The human fleet moved as one organism because it was one organism. Every ship was connected through quantum communication networks that allowed instant coordination across light years. Every captain knew the position and status of every other ship. Every crew member was part of a single, unified purpose. Enemy contact in 10 minutes, announced the tactical officer on Admiral Chen's bridge. All ships report ready, came the reply from across the fleet. Then let's show the galaxy what humans do when cornered, Admiral Chen said quietly. The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness like a newborn star. Harbinger ships unleashed energy weapons that tore holes in space-time itself. Beams of dark matter sliced through the void, seeking human targets with predatory hunger. These were weapons that had shattered planets and consumed the light of entire star systems. They struck human shields and simply disappeared. Impossible, breathed the Harbinger fleet commander, a creature so ancient it remembered the death of the previous galaxy. No species has shields that can absorb quantum decay weapons. But the humans did. The shields that protected human ships were based on technology found in the Kepler ruins, but enhanced by human innovation. They didn't just deflect enemy fire, they absorbed it, converted it, and fed it back into the ship's power systems. The humans had learned from the mistakes of the builders. Return fire, ordered Admiral Chen. Human weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever produced. Instead of energy beams or projectile weapons, they fired pure mathematics. Equations that rewrote the laws of physics in small areas of space, creating pockets of reality where Harbinger technology simply couldn't function. The effect was devastating. Harbinger ships that had never been damaged in 50,000 years of conquest suddenly found their hulls failing. Their organic armor, evolved to resist every known form of attack, crumbled as the fundamental forces holding their molecules together were temporarily redefined. First enemy wave destroyed, reported the tactical officer. Around Admiral Chen, her bridge crew maintained their professional calm, but she could see the excitement in their eyes. They had done it. They had hurt the Harbingers. But this was only the beginning. The Harbinger fleet adapted quickly. Ancient intelligences that had fought across multiple galaxies began to modify their tactics. They spread out, forcing the humans to fight on multiple fronts. They brought forward their hunter-killers, smaller ships designed to swarm and overwhelm enemy formations. The battle became a deadly dance across 3 star systems. Human ships moved with impossible grace, their formations flowing around Harbinger attacks like water around rocks. When enemy forces concentrated on one area, human ships would appear from hyperspace behind them. When Harbingers tried to surround human positions, the humans would simply fade away and reform somewhere else. How are they doing this? Demanded the Harbinger commander. No species has ever demonstrated this level of tactical coordination. The answer was simple, though the Harbingers couldn't understand it. Humans fought as one because they chose to. Every captain in the fleet was connected to every other captain through quantum links that allowed them to share thoughts, emotions, and tactical awareness in real time. They felt each other's pain when ships were damaged. They shared each other's determination when the battle seemed hopeless. They moved as one because they had become one, united by purpose and necessity. Admiral, called the communications officer on Admiral Chen's bridge. We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. Put it through. Admiral Chen replied, never taking her eyes off the tactical display. Chancellor Morden's image appeared on a small screen. Behind him, the entire council chamber was visible, filled with representatives watching the battle, in stunned silence. Admiral Chen, Morden said, his voice shaking. Your losses are acceptable. Admiral Chen cut him off. We knew this would be costly. But you've lost nearly 300 ships and destroyed over 1,000 Harbinger vessels. Admiral Chen replied calmly. The exchange rate favors us. How can you be so calm about your people dying, Admiral? Chen finally looked at the screen, and Morden saw something in her eyes that made him step back. It wasn't coldness or cruelty. It was acceptance of a truth the rest of the galaxy had never understood. "Chancellor," Admiral Chen said quietly, "we are human. We have always known that some things are worth dying for. The survival of the galaxy is one of them." The transmission ended, but across the galaxy, billions of people had heard those words. The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships fought with a ferocity that stunned both their enemies and their allies. When ships were damaged beyond repair, their crews would ram them into Harbinger vessels rather than surrender. When formations were broken, new ones would form from the survivors. When all seemed lost, reinforcements would appear from the void. "Where do they keep getting new ships?" asked the Harbinger commander. The answer came when long-range sensors detected something that changed the nature of the war. Hundreds of massive structures were moving in from the galactic rim. At first, they looked like ships. Then the sensors resolved their true nature. Cities. Entire human cities, flying through space under their own power. "Population centers approaching combat zone," reported a Harbinger scout. "Analysis suggests civilian evacuation vessels." "No," said the ancient commander, studying the readings more carefully. "Those aren't evacuation ships. They're mobile shipyards." As the galaxy watched in amazement, the flying cities began producing new ships even as the battle raged. Factories that had been built into the hulls of converted colony ships worked at impossible speeds, using matter compilers to turn raw materials into finished warships in a matter of hours. "They're building ships faster than we can destroy them," reported a Harbinger tactical officer. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Harbinger commander felt something it had forgotten: doubt. The humans weren't just fighting a battle. They were fighting a war of production, a war of will, a war of determination. Every ship destroyed was replaced by two more. Every tactic the Harbingers used, the humans countered with something new. "Admiral Chen," came a transmission from one of the flying cities. "This is Director Martinez of Mobile Industrial Platform 7. We have fresh ships ready for deployment." "Understood, Director. Deploy at your discretion." "Admiral," Martinez continued, "the children want you to know they're proud of you." Admiral Chen smiled for the first time in days. On every human city ship, children who had been born in the void were watching their parents and older siblings fight to save the galaxy. They understood what was at stake, and they were proud to be human. "Tell them we're proud of them too," Admiral Chen replied. The tide of battle turned in the 21st hour. The Harbinger fleet, reduced to fewer than 800 ships, began to retreat toward the galactic core. They had never retreated before, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. "Should we pursue?" asked Admiral Chen's tactical officer. "No," Admiral Chen replied. "Let them go." "Admiral, they're heading straight for the core worlds," Admiral Chen explained. "Right into the trap we set for them." As the Harbinger fleet retreated, they found their path blocked by something impossible. A wall of human ships stretched across 3 star systems supported by weapons platforms that had been hidden in asteroids and nebulae for months. The humans hadn't just been preparing to fight the Harbingers, they had been preparing to trap them.